Hello, everyone. I'm back to carry on the discussion of my visionary state experiences that I've been having throughout my life. Now, the last video I did to talk about this, I called Sorting Out Reality. That's probably the longest video I made. And that's because I've spent a lot of time trying to sort this out. And see, so this all started coming to a head when I was 24, and I started realizing that I'm a time traveler, that I've been going into visionary state, and 24 years later, half my lifetime, I've spent trying to sort this all out. And so that turns into a pretty long discussion. And okay, so what I've realized recently is that I could simply be a channeler going through phases of development. And that for me, this has been my training. So that's where I think the important revelation that anyone could use is that you could go to visionary state or be able to see the future, be able to know things that are remote to you both in space and time. Okay, very possible. But then the story itself is like, maybe it's none of your business. Like, maybe you don't need to hear all this stuff, right? Because it's about my life, and it entails other people who probably don't want me to talk about them. So it brings in most of the people I've known throughout this narrative. And then there's Bill Lieb, because I bring him up, that kind of makes it a bad story for some reason. So that's where I'm gonna go ahead and share it anyways. Maybe this is just for my own good, even if people don't need to hear this. But so this part of my conversation I'm gonna call part of the prophecy is true and part of the prophecy is false, because those were the words of my friend Jason when I went into visionary state at his place. He explained to me how this time travel visionary stuff works. So here I am in visionary state, and he's telling me about it, and I didn't actually believe it because it's so real. And this is what I really want to start out with, is that it's a real thing. Okay, it's not common knowledge. I think if you Google it or whatever, I don't know if there's going to be any actual proof, but there are people out there who can attest that they've experienced it. And of course, it's a colorful scenario for movies where, so it's a good topic for movies. That's why you have all these famous movies, from Peter Pan to Groundhog Day to, you name it. There's like a dozen at least. Okay, so anyways, time travel in the visionary state is very possible. In fact, I think Native American people, they go into visionary state, and like his crazy horse, he saw glimpses of the future, and he saw Lakota people coming down black ribbons and metal insects, and he saw metal insects in the sky or metal birds in the sky. So, sometimes we can't interpret what we're seeing in the future because, we don't have the scientific understanding of what those are. Okay, so time travel, the movie he told me about, he said I should watch Fifth Element because I'm in that movie. Well, I'm not in the movie, but when I watched the movie at my dad's house, it looked like I was spliced into it. So I did see that, but that's not really relevant to everybody else. But I was warned I would see that, right? So now Jason went on to tell me a bunch of stuff about Bill Lieb, and this is the stuff where maybe this is none of your business. I should be talking about it, and it's not fair to him to put him in my conversation, but it's unfortunately the person that was put before me in the story, and this is how I was being tricked or trained, or however you want to look at this. But Bill plays tennis. I didn't believe that, and it turns out later on when I reconnected, him and his girlfriend Amelia go to play tennis together. Bill wears girls' underwear. I don't know that, but it's funny. And there was a time in 2004, my friend and I had a place in Boulder, Colorado. It was like an art studio. And I noticed the camera up the hall was missing from somebody else's unit, and my key wasn't working really well. And well, my long underwear were missing, and so I prophesied this would happen. And so maybe it's being blamed on Bill. Maybe they're blaming him for going in my place and stealing my long underwear, but they would probably be too small to fit him. However, I think I was also told that Bill Lieb is a cop, so, that could be where the people that went into my unit were cops. Maybe one of the officers liked my long underwear. Bisexual. I don't know that for a fact. I was told that he's attracted to people between the age of 18 and 20. because I know about his relationship with that girl Amelia, I understand that he started seeing her when she was 18 years old. And I also understand that Jeremy Inkle was about 18 or 19 when he got involved with him. Um, Sugar Daddy, possibly if he was letting the girlfriend stay with him rent free and spending a lot of money on her, that could be applicable. Cocaine, that's something that is commonly, done around the music business and around the club scene. So I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but I'm not gonna say I know that for a fact. But when I was looking for him at that party, and I ran into that guy Christian Howard, he said I couldn't find him because he was too busy doing coke. And then I had another friend said he was incognito as Bob and that he was doing coke, and so those things could be visionary slips too. So don't want to say that, but if you know him or you are him and you know that for a fact, you can know that this is a prophetic piece of information. Going bald. Bill Leeb has a receding hairline, so that usually entails an expanding bald spot. So it's kind of true if you're saying that he's losing some hair, but does he wear a wig or a hairpiece? I think he might have said a toupee, and it's like, couldn't believe it. But some pictures of Bill Leeb, more like after 2000, when he kind of has like the straight blonde looking hair that kind of lays down. It looks like he's got a lot of hair up there, so he could be using a hairpiece. Now the wig could apply to, like, when I thought I saw him at that party, or that guy told me he was running around in a wig. I might have seen him in that wig. And then I also thought I saw Bill going up the hall wearing a wig at the Acacia. Like, I thought I had that friend up the hall whose dad had the record company and all that bullshit. And then so Jason told me he lives at the Acacia building where I was living, and he had me look up somebody named Tony Van Buren. That way, like, it would link me to Baldus Van Buren. So that's where, like, so there's this mailbox in the mailroom at the Acacia where I lived, and I find this name Baldus Van Buren, and it's like, oh, I remember that clear back to 1982. So that's where, like, it's a somewhat truthful piece of information, but it was applied to trick me. And whether or not he lived in the Acacia, there's a chance, like, if he was coming into Denver to go to a music studio or something, that the record company affiliated with that, they could either buy up or rent property to provide housing for a traveling artist. So this might have been mentioned in my visions, and that building might have had apartments where maybe musicians come to stay and stuff, so temporarily. So he might have been staying there temporarily. But then later on, I ran into those people out front. There's a security guard with this smaller woman, and she looked like she could have been Carol Ann, but I didn't know that at the time. And she asked me if I thought a rock star was living in the building, and so I kind of denied it. But that's one of those things that I reflect back to, like, that doesn't mean, there's really no answer. Like, he could have actually been there, or but I do know that they were in Denver, that his keyboard player Chris Peterson was in a relationship with a girl that worked in the area, and that they did come to do some studio work. I thought it was on this album here, Implode, but it could have been a different one because I looked it over, and I'm just wondering if they released something in like 2000 that mentions any studio in Denver. Either that was a visionary slip or you might find that. Now, something that Jason talked about, so he went on about Bill Leeb for a little while, then he went on about that movie, and then but then he started talking about stuff like surveillance and conspiracy theories and that type of stuff. So I think he ran some things by me, like how something about these experiments that they do on people. So he might have brought up like weather, like he might have brought up HAARP and all that stuff, like the government's controlling the weather. So I think nowadays everybody talks about HAARP. That I think it's become common knowledge that the government and their scientific communities supported by the government that are trying to influence weather. Targeted individuals. So we talked a little bit about targeted individuals, and one of the things I think he might have discussed with me is that they use infrared to see you where you are inside, and then they may administer gas through an open window if they can find one. That has a hallucinogenic quality, and so this can drive people crazy. People under the influence can end up incarcerated, institutionalized, and some of these people even in their lives. And so this concern comes up a few times in my life where, like, at the time at the Acacia, it did have me wondering. And and then living in Big Fork, I had the suspicion that that could have happened there. So this is a lot of times when people are experiencing symptoms of psychosis and schizophrenia, they can worry about being what you call under surveillance or having things done to them like this. So only somebody who's mentally ill would be worried about this. So I don't want to like buy into this too much, but it's something where, like, even if it hasn't been happening to me, this is something where you read up on it, and there's a lot of information on the internet talking about all these possibilities of things that we consider to be conspiracy theories and surveillance. I think there's like an umbrella surveillance, so we're all pretty much under surveillance, and we all know that if you use keywords and stuff, that it can trigger further surveillance, stuff like that. So and that's probably expanded quite a bit since like 1998. So nowadays, I think it's kind of common knowledge that you're under surveillance. Okay, so but I have read up on like targeted individuals and other such experiences where people feel like maybe somebody's doing something to them, and they kind of catch it happening. So anyways, the next thing I want to go over is when I got that phone call from Rosie. Now, we had a really colorful conversation, and so we were having a discussion about, my kung fu teacher, and, the higher we climb, the harder we fall. She said, and even angels learn how to fall. And she said, in fact, there's going to be a song called Prophecy coming out soon by Frontline Assembly. So that would be this album, and I'm in Mirror Vision. But if you look on the back of it here, Prophecy is the one song that's highlighted on the whole album, and that's the song. And so in the song, he says, nothing seems to matter, even angels learn to fall. So she gave me that piece of lyric before I actually got to get the album, because the conversation happened in 98, the album was released in 99. And I don't have the album anymore, but I did buy Conjure One, Rhys Fulber's first album with his solar project that's similar to Delirium. So during that conversation in the Visionary State, Rosie mentioned that song as well, because she's telling me she's a space traveler, and she wanted to assure me that there are more planets like Earth, and there are more beautiful planets in the living universe that are like Earth but better, so life could be better. And she said, Jody, it's like there's so many planets, they're like grains of sand on a great beach. And she said, in fact, there's going to be a song coming out with those lyrics in it. And she mentioned to me Conjure One, and the song is going to be called Manic Star because a planet looks like a star from a distance. And so it says, grains of sand are all we are, crawling on this manic star. That's what she's saying. It's this planet looks like a star, and it's kind of manic, isn't it now? So, but good news is there's more planets, and there's more beautiful planets, so that could also be hidden confirmation. Like maybe once we get our license and we become space travelers, then we can prove that. She said I will time travel in a year from then, which I did. I did have a visionary state experience where I time traveled from November 2nd of 1999 to January 27th of 2000. And so that's something I can't really prove either way. That's just a truth that I own. But then she was going on about, you have the soulmate, you've known them all your life, and it's like, well, that's a partially true statement, because I've always remembered Billy. That's what I was saying on my last video, was like, I can't not remember Billy, so I've always remembered him, but I can't say like I've known him, like we don't know each other. So this was kind of a good hint. And she also mentioned I will go to his concert, and he would ask me to marry him, but then his voice is going to get blurred out somehow. Now, I did go to a concert in 99, and he started yelling. It's not like he was mad, like, if you care about music so much, and he got blurred out, and it was just like static or something. And so that might, his voice got cut out, and that might coincide with that statement, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was asking me to marry him. He could have been saying something else, but just funny things like that, like stuff that I would notice like that happening. I just love how that comes around, right? So, anyways, this was the conversation that encouraged me to write to Bill Lee, because it was just like, if you ever want to see him again. And so I think I was able to put two and two together, or however that math goes, and that I thought maybe I will give it a try. Maybe I'll go to meet him. And so before I met him too, I had a dream. It was kind of a prophetic dream, because he had this new keyboard player named Chris Peterson. And so I had a dream that I went to the autograph signing and I saw Chris Peterson there. And then later on, I was trying to go to their party, and Chris Peterson was like, telling me I'm not invited. And he's like, I just want my peace and quiet. So in my dream, I saw Chris Peterson, the way he looked, and then he said those same lines. In my dream, he said, I just want my peace and quiet. Because he was trying to keep me from going to that party. So then I went to that party, or I went to the concert, went to the after party, which was going down to Cafe Netherworld, and didn't seem to make the connection. So it really seems like a very low likelihood that I ever will, right? So that's why it's interesting that this kind of keeps going and stringing me along. And so I went to see my dad that Christmas of '98, and he had this book he was telling me about, this general of an Austrian army, and he's a time traveler and all this stuff. So here's the truth in that, is that Bill Lee may not be a general or a part of an Austrian army. He's probably not part of a mafia or anything like that. He's just someone that makes music. But if you Google Wilhelm Lieb, there is an Austrian general, and so sometimes the Nazis were called the Austrian Mafia or the Austrian Army. And of course, he happens to be Austrian, so perfect. Okay, the time traveler bit. Well, I know, like, I'm a time traveler for the fact that I have experienced time travel in the visionary state, but it's not like I have any control of it. And so whether or not Bill Lieb is a time traveler is unknown to me. If he is, he keeps it to himself. But he could be, why not? I mean, listen to his music and stuff. So, and Bill Lee could also be a channeler, like a lot of my favorite artists are channelers, I would see Bill Lee at different times, or I guess we'd see each other at different times or different ages. And so I think, when I first started seeing Billy, he was always a couple years older than me. So this is, again, a personal truth from my dad's story, like, in the time travel stuff. And my personal experience, Bill Lee looked like he was only 2 years older than me. And then when I went over to my parents' friends, Bill and Stella's, he looked like he was only 5. And then later on, I think, when I talk about when I thought I saw him on the Navy base at Taekwondo, but then also when I saw him go in his bob in that white Trans Am, that could have been Bill around the age of 30. So, like, if I was seeing him in Denver in, like 97, 96, 97, Bill Lee looked more like he did when he was 30, had the dark wavy hair with the undercut, because then the present Bill Lee, it seemed like his blonde is starting to come back more, and he wasn't wearing the undercut so much. Now, let's see. I think he made mention of Jeremy Ankle. I don't know if he told me his name, but I think this is like where he makes mention of Jeremy Ankle, and that Bill Lee brought a young man into his band that was a keyboard player because he was sexually attracted to him. And so this comes up later. My friend Jeremy mentioned Jeremy Ankle to me as well. So in this conversation, my dad is suggesting that Bill Lee brought a young man into his band because he found him sexually attractive. And so that could be true, because when I went to see them in 2006, he was introducing the band. So Frontline Assembly toured in '99, and then they didn't tour until 2006. So by then he's had a new lineup. So when he introduced the audience to Jeremy Ankle, he pointed to him and said, Reese Volber got hotter, and then he said, just kidding, this is Jeremy Ankle. So that implies two things: that he thought Reese Volber was a hot young man, and that he thinks that Jeremy's even hotter. So, like, he finds them sexually attractive, and now he's even got a more sexually attractive keyboard player. So one of the things my dad said in a story, that I would be, disappointed to find out that Bill Lee is attracted to hookers. So whether they're hookers or not, that's kind of my opinion. Like Amelia Bentley. I think Bill's wife even thought of her as a hooker. You know, these are people that use their looks and everything to get with guys, and that's what I thought of his girlfriend Jeannie. Now, he may have mentioned that he was interested in getting with somebody in Europe. That could have been that chick Nuria. She's also, in my opinion, a hooker. But you know, so he wanted to get involved with her, but that didn't work out. Something my dad talks about in the book is that Bill was starting to get more conscientious about his age and his appearance, and so that might be true because they did a video in 2011 called Combat Ready, and so he wanted to sue the person who made the video because there were too many close-ups revealing his age, and so you know, he really doesn't like watching those videos and seeing how old he looks. I got kicked off of their band site, so my dad told me, you know, I got kicked off of their band site, which I did. I felt like I single-handedly made them develop their website in such a way that, like, you know, you used to be able to just come on and make up a name every time. You could be a different name every time, and then they made you have to create an account so that way you could only have one name and have an ID. And so if you get kicked off, you could kind of create another account and start over. Well, they've got their defense is so strong, like, you know, once you get kicked out, you can't get back in again, and that's because of me. And I used to call him a rock star. I don't know if that makes him angry, but my dad says in the story it did bother him, but I was being sarcastic all the time and saying, you know, I can't talk to Bill because he's a hot, sexy rock star, or else I'm, you know, being sarcastic and saying I'm just a horny groupie trying to get a rock star in bed, and just making comments like that because I was angry about it, and like I can't talk to him because he's too famous and there's the social politics and stuff. So another thing I was told in my dad's story is that he's being watched closely. So he likes to hear from me, but he can't talk to me because he's being watched closely. Now, of course, if you go into the music business or any kind of media arts, like even me doing these videos, I gotta expect that to be reviewed by intelligence agencies. They just want to know what's being put out there as a general rule. But as far as him being watched closely, you know, I thought, well, maybe that's because he's a time traveler or something, or maybe he's part of a mafia, right? So, you know, but then I realized, well, you know, before his wife divorced him, she probably hired a detective, and I'm just thinking, you know, now that he remarried her, he doesn't want to get caught talking to any women, right? So he could be under surveillance at any given time because of his past. So, you know, since I've gone and mentioned that, you know, I've had all these visions, and that, to be honest, if he wanted to get me in bed or anything, you know, I probably would give in quite easily, you know. So it's kind of like admitting that, yeah, I'm attracted to him, and, you know, if he was in love with me and wanted to marry me, yeah, I'd probably be able to reciprocate that. So, you know, I've gone and said all that. Now, if Bill Lee was seen talking to me at any length, that could appear as if he's also interested. That could appear as if he's reciprocating, and so that makes he and I off limits to each other. So even if he did like me, that would be really impossible for us to continue to have a friendship. So the magazine article I read in 1998, I thought it was a magazine article about Skinny Puppy. No, it was, but it was in Goldmine. It was this big giant newspaper thing, and I opened it up, and there was a piece of the article that was there in the visionary state, but then it was gone when I looked for it later, and so that connected the conversation that we had in 1982 to the name Baldus on the mailbox in the mailroom. So the magazine started out with that quote that his name is Baldus, but we call him Billy because it's easier. And he came from Austria by a form of time travel to meet his future wife. And so that kind of helped connect some dots, you know, like my dad's story, and Rosie saying that in 1982. But, you know, Ken, there's no Baldus Van Buren, unless that's the apartment they were using for people to stay at. Maybe Bill has either been there or been a temporary resident, who knows. So there's a half-truth, but then left his wife for a younger girl. This is the interesting part. So in that little snippet said he left his wife to be involved with a younger girl. Now there's some truth in that. Now actually his wife left him because he was involved with the younger girl, but still thought that could be something that pertains to me. So it was giving me the insight that he could be married, but he might leave his wife for me, you know. And so I noticed when I look on his albums that it says thanks to Carol Ann, and I realized that's who introduced herself to me at the show. And I thought, well, maybe that is his wife, you know. So by 2005, you know, I thought, well, maybe I'll write him a letter and tell him about all this stuff, you know, just tell him why I was so convinced to go meet him and all that stuff. And so I told him that part. And so I didn't know it yet, but he was in reality divorced because his wife caught him with the new girlfriend. So when I bought the new noise unit in 2005, I thought, this has got to be his new girlfriend, you know? So I was halfway through the letter too, so I thought, well, just in case he's got that new girlfriend, I put a few things in there to kind of agitate her and get her to, like, maybe want to say something to me. So in reality, let me see, 2005, 2007, I went to the show, and he had this girl pick him up named Jeannie. And so I don't know if she's a hired escort or if she's like really somebody into him, but we all went to the church and we're on the dance floor. And they were positioned so that Bill was facing me and her back was to me. So he was talking to me over her shoulder. And I was kind of dancing over by Jeremy. And like, he said, so I finally got the divorce, you know. And I'm thinking, she noticed it, like the girl Jeannie, she might have noticed he said that to me, because for the rest of the night, she kept trying to block us from talking and almost picked a fight with me even. But the other part of the story was that there's an alien implant that gets attached to the optical nerve. Maybe that's what the term technical neural implant stands for. And my weak eye is my right eye, so I started going, oh my God, what if I have that? So that's where, you know, you get mixed information. So that could happen. You know, maybe people find these implants, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have one. But it's coupled with the information about how Bill Lieb left his wife for a young girl, and then we find out that must have been Amelia. So I flew my dad into town, 99 Halloween. We were going to go see Frontline Assembly, but they canceled. And then he told me some story about when he was in prison, and that there was like the leader of the Austrian mafia was in there, and they got him out because they found out he was really intelligent and well-read, and that way maybe he could provide offspring to the grandchildren, you know. Well, that's not true. My dad did go to prison. So when I talked to my dad about it later, you know, he went to prison, but there was no mafia and all that. However, it was interesting because his area of study is World War I and II. He knows a lot about the Nazis. And so he said it was interesting because when Adolf Hitler went to prison, he was trying to help people that he identified as, you know, being very intelligent and worthy of his cause. And so he did try to help people get out of prison. Now again, this is just more information, something that either he read out of a book or something I saw in another visionary slip, but you know, this is very plausible. Kind of like connecting the Austrian general, you know, like the Bill Lieb, that could have been just a clue earlier on, like when we're talking about is his name, is he really a general of an Austrian mafia? No, but he has the same name as one. And then the time trip itself, so from November of 99 to I skipped from November of 99 to January 2000, and just being in the future for a while, like, so I was at the end of January and I finished at the beginning of June. And I come back and relive it. So that experience in itself demonstrates parallel dimensional time travel. So every single day felt like I was doing it again. Except that in the future, in the visionary state, I would have additional conversations and additional information rendered to me. For example, like in the future, in the visionary state, I thought I saw Jeremy Inkle going in the building through a different door. I didn't know who he was yet, but my friend Jeremy knew who he was. And he told me that was Bill Lieb's little boyfriend. Now I also saw his guitar player Jared. So after I moved out of the Acacia and I was staying over at my friend Jim's house, I was trying to sneak out the alley and go down to work. And I thought I saw Bill Lieb with a guy that could have been Jared, you know, so I didn't know who Jared was yet, but it turns out that that's who that was. And it could have been a visionary slip, but it was just a time where it wasn't convenient for me to cross the street and contact them. So that could have been a prophetic part, you know, like seeing Jeremy and Jared ahead of time, you know. When I went to Key West for Christmas in '99, and I went through that, I realized I came from a 1998 and a visionary slip during that visit, and I saw all those cherries. Like, so in '98, I got a call from my sister saying that a truckload of cherries were going to be dropped off, and so they were laughing like, "Oh, it looks like a truckload of cherries were dropped off." But those were for my Uncle Charlie. But in the visionary slip, those were supposed to be a truckload of cherries for me, and I was told somebody wants to marry me in that conversation. So when I saw those cherries, it kind of triggered the memory, and the macaw too. There was a blue and gold macaw in the living room that wasn't there before. So in the visionary slip, I went to take a nap in a side room, and I came in there, and my friend Chris Smith was there, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" You know. So then in reality, I was reliving that. So I realized, I feel like I've been here before. Now let's see. And in seeing that movie clip in '99, that's when I'm talking about The Fifth Element. I saw a clip. It looked like me and my friend Jeremy were flipping off a politician in Denver. So when I saw that, it really made me scared because, I mean, even though it might have happened in a visionary slip, in fact, my friend Rosie saw it too when she watched Fifth Element at a different time. She also saw the same clip and realized that was probably myself. So, thing is I don't have any way to prove that that clip exists. However, I take it as a strong indication that the film was being made from a building south of the Capitol building, and it's like the state capitol of Colorado. And the building south of that, I think it's like the IRS building. And so, like, there could be a government agency that was filming that day, and they might actually have this footage of Jeremy and I. And that's why it was shown to me in a visionary state, to give me a warning. Now, that could mean if I felt like I was being investigated, maybe I was. You know, so when I was in Key West and I went over to my friend Nathan's dad's house, I was looking for Nathan, but his dad was there and he was gone. And I wanted some pot, so he fronted some pot to me, and I got paranoid because I started remembering being warned that they might be undercovers, you know, working with SWAT and all this stuff, SWAT team in Key West there. So, and I started remembering that down there. But then just recently, by coincidence, I was just talking to a friend of mine from Key West who knew those people, and I ran it by him, and he said they are not affiliated with the police department. Thank God. That could have been just a trick of the mind, you know. So that's where sometimes stuff is true and sometimes it's not. I'm being shown stuff that I'm going to see later. And I think that's really fascinating. So, like, basically this is all waking me up and making me remember back to when I was a little kid. And so, back in 1982, the very first visionary experience would be when I met Rosie and Howard and they were taking care of Billy. Now, in reality, yes, I did meet all these people, so I became close friends with Rosie. The very reason I'm in this house is because I came here to live with Rosie, and her husband Howard died before I moved up here, but I met him a couple of times. And then Bill, I've met him, and, like, you know, we're aware of each other, but, like, he's not really involved with me, but he's definitely a real person. His appearance, at least, like, he appeared to me that he was 8 going on 9, and that's why I did this drawing over here. I've been sharing this drawing. When I bring it up, the appearance could be accurate, you know, because when he lets his hair grow out, it's kind of curly in the back, and it's kind of got that golden blonde with the darker roots and eyebrows. And in reality, that is the exact hair color that I remember, but it was kind of curly in the back, you know. So that's why I did this drawing, kind of like how I remember Billy's hair. Now, you don't usually see him like that, so most Frontline Assembly fans aren't going to laugh at this joke, because it would make more sense if he had an undercut or spiky hair. But when I went to see Delirium, he let his hair grow out, and it was very much like it was when I first met him. So after that, I started thinking, you know, that Billy Lieb is a curly Q. So that's how what I needed to see to increase my certainty is that Bill Lieb, in fact, is a curly Q. Okay, so now before I started having these Bill Lieb visions, I had that Friends of Jesus vision, you know, so that's where, like, And I'm not really like that Christian-y or anything, but later on in 2009, I had an experience where like I was wide awake, but I felt like I was being contacted by what we call God and what we call Jesus. So like if this is any confirmation that either of those exist, perhaps they do. And so that's why I've done some other videos like the three components of the universe, is that the Christian revelation is that of the Holy Trinity, which is basically the science of the universe, that it takes frequency, energy, and vibration to get everything that we have. So that's another discussion in itself. But back into like when I met Rosie, we want to look at what's true and what's not true. And like, yes, so I don't have any proof that I was aware of him, but I was being told about Bill Lee of Frontline Assembly in 1982. That's a prophetic vision in itself, even though I can't prove it. But the cross information was the name Baldus Van Vuren, so that was something I would discover later in the mailroom. Now, we're being told Bill and I are going to be married and playing in a band together. That seems very unlikely, because he is married to Carol Ann, which is somebody he's been involved with for a very long time, for more than 40 years. And plus his age, you know. Now, one thing Bill's got going for him, like if his mother's still alive by any chance, which last I've heard she is, then longevity may run in his family. So Bill could live another 20, 30 years if he takes care of himself and nothing bad happens to him. So that does leave some room for the possibility, you know, just because he's married doesn't mean, you know, he's going to stay married, because marriage doesn't mean a whole lot anymore these days just because someone's married. And who knows, maybe there's a slim possibility there's some truth in this, but I'm not counting on it. In fact, the other thing that I was told is that we will go on a spaceship someday, and I think that, well, that's probably more likely to happen than he and I ever being married and all that good stuff. By the way things going, it seems very unlikely. However, Rosie's subject matter was UFO contact, so she believes she's been abducted and in contact with aliens. And so by coming here, I feel like I've gotten a lot of education from her about that. And so I may be in contact with some sort of extraterrestrial, but I don't remember spaceships being involved. And then there's Bill Lieb. In 1998, I think after we met them at the Netherworld, I ran into this guy. He had a band called 3.0. Can't think of his name, but he said he was friends with Bill, and that Bill has written some stuff online about his UFO encounter. So again, I don't know if there's any truth to that, or if that's another visionary slip. So there's a chance maybe Bill Lieb has had a UFO encounter. Now, Rosie's daughter came over shortly before Rosie died, and let us know that her and her husband had a UFO encounter. So I'm really happy that happened. And Billy met me at the age of 24. So Billy told me in the visionary state that he would meet me at the age of 24 as a time traveler. Now, I didn't see him anywhere because I started remembering that, and I kind of was wondering if I really will. But something he told me that I could connect with is that I made him jealous and he hurt my feelings. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know why. Maybe the hinting at Chris Smith, maybe Bill Lieb thought me and Chris were together and then hurt my feelings. Oh, hell yeah, definitely. I think I've got my feelings hurt so much, you know, that it still hurts, okay? Now, last time I seen Billy over at Rosie's house, I think I tried to slip off. My dad was still in bed one morning, and I ran off, and I was walking up F Avenue, and Billy came through the vacant lot behind their lot, and he had this dog that was like, I don't know what breed it was, but it was kind of bushy and had like a curly tail, and it's kind of like that orangey brown, foxy colored type of dog. Well, he said that this would be his dog in the future. And so when I was living at the Acacia and I had been going through all this visionary stuff, I started noticing a dog like that in the yard just to the north of where I would go out back to train. And it started making me wonder, I wonder if that's Bill's dog, you know? I don't think it was, but it was a dog that I would see later. So that's kind of interesting. You know, I forgot to mention this. When Bill went to the future and saw me at the age of 24, he told me that I'd give him hugs and kisses and tell him that I love him more than anybody else. And I was thinking, that sounds kind of weird. But at the point, I probably would have. You know, I would have been so happy to see him, you know. And then noogies, he said I would have gave him the noogies. I probably would have gave him the noogies That's kind of like my mom's little jokes. I remember telling them, okay, I know what you're talking about. My mom always gives me the noogies, That's when you put somebody in a headlock and noogies, right? So, Bill's dog. Let's see, the 1983, I saw the future. And so that's when we're going over to my parents' friends Bill and Stella's. They lived on 6B Navy base. We were listening to New Order, Power and Corruption and Lies a lot. So like when I heard the music I was listening to, I couldn't help thinking it's very similar. So I was listening to this. I'm in mirror vision, but this is Armin van Buuren, State of Trance, 2008. Well, in 1983, I was seeing myself through my neighbor's window, but like in the future. So 1983, I was seeing myself in 2010, and I was listening to that album, and I was spinning these nunchucks, probably. Those chucks, that album. And so Billy told me I will be a Shaolin master someday. Well, that's partly true. I am trained in Shaolin. I have a 2nd degree black belt in that system. And if I go back to class, I could be a Shaolin master if I keep training and testing through the ranks. But I am definitely not a Shaolin master. I am simply a fat old black belt. Now, 1987, and I saw Bill in that visionary slip over at Juan's house. He was telling me he appears to be close to my age for the sake of visiting, but his real age was 30. That's true. Early in 87, Billy probably would have been 30. And so Billy was telling me he wanted to get there before the other boys because the boys will disrespect me. And so that's why he showed me how to properly kiss. He wants me to know what it's like to be kissed by somebody when they love you, because boys don't know how to kiss, and he described how they do it wrong. And so when I met Juan Long later, actually, just a few years later, I think I was 15, and me and him went to kiss, and it's like he did not know how to kiss. It was everything Billy said not to do. In fact, Juan didn't remember the encounter, so I checked with him, like, don't you remember this? Now this is where the story's kind of sick and twisted. Now, my first fist fight was in kindergarten when me and Billy had a fist fight, right? So that's why I remembered him. He was my first boyfriend, my first fist fight. This is pretty sick and twisted because it was also the first time I gave anybody a blowjob. So, so after he taught me how to kiss and he tried to have sex, I was still a virgin and I couldn't go all the way. So he asked me to suck his dick. Okay. And so I really didn't want to, but he said, please do this for me. Please do this for me. And so he talked me into doing it. And it wasn't so bad, thankfully. He was clean and everything, but it was just like reality. Like, again, I didn't know I was in visionary state. And so I always thought, maybe me and Juan were the first time, but this is Billy in the visionary state. And him and Juan are very similar for a lot of reasons, right? Anyways, so while I was in the middle of doing this, he said, this is what you have to do to get into the music business. Now, that right there is part of the humor in my visions. And so that's kind of like something people say, like Marilyn Monroe, it's not who you know, it's who you blow. So it goes back a long ways. Now, another time, I think the very last time I saw Billy, and I was kind of getting him mixed up with Juan, I was getting off the bus from Sugarloaf. It was like the beginning of 6th grade before I got transferred to HOB. And so we went behind the gas station and into the Stilt house, and he wanted to kiss me and all that stuff again. But this time he put my shirt up and he was trying to suck my tits. And I'm like, I really don't have any boobs, it's like I barely, have any titties, And he goes, that's okay. I like small tits. Well, there's some truth in that. That's Amelia's titties, so that's his trophy girlfriend. So not only that, but, I don't want to encourage you to look at his wife's tits, but Carol Ann's got some pretty small titties too. Now, now the thing that was included at the end when I was leaving Juan's is Billy was telling me, he wants to get me into the music business. And so it kind of makes me reflect on when I saw Bill leave at the Navy base. So I was in the visionary slip where I thought I saw him at the Navy base. I thought I saw him in Taekwondo class. But then when I moved to Denver, my friend Dan had that friend named Bob, And if that was supposed to be Bill Lieb, then these are all kind of when Bill Lieb was around the age of 30. So that's where, again, I was seeing him at different ages, So in reality, Bill was letting his hair kind of grow and fully, and it was going back blonde. But in the visionary state, when I was at Dan's, I saw the older version of Bill Lieb. So this is where, let me see, 2002, I did have another visionary slip where I saw Bill as a teenager. So I look forward to telling that a little more in depth. But then it seems like things get really quiet between like 2000 and 2010. So anyways, I kind of wanted to go over some of these memories of like, this is the information I get from the visionary slips, and this is kind of where the truth is in it. Like, now one thing that's always made it difficult, like sorting all this stuff out, is that Bill Lieb is off limits, and he has a personality type where you can't really communicate with him. And I really have a lot of respect and appreciation for Bill Lieb, but it turns out that he is a pathological liar, and I hesitate to say that, but he has a reputation for telling a lot of small lies and being kind of secretive, and even his wife was telling me that. So if I was talking to her for real, or if I was going into visionary slips, I don't know, but it just seems like there's a number of people that have been involved with Bill Lieb that says he does lie about things. And so that's what's always made it very difficult, because in the visionary state, I'm being told, like, this guy really loves me so much, and he's going to ask me to marry him. And then, like, when I go back to that 1987, he was just really urging me, like, Jody, I love you. Please don't forget who I am. So in the visionary state, there's like this urgent message to don't forget him because of how much he loves me. But in reality, it just seems like he's emotionally unavailable to me, so to speak. So, and married. So being that he's married and all this stuff, it just seems like this is all incorrect information. Now, here's something we want to take into consideration. Okay, so the girlfriend Amelia was told that he thinks I'm fat, ugly, and stupid. Well, that's how my dad talks about my mom. I mean, my dad has even put my mom in the hospital a couple of different times, and even then has still continued to make love to her. Even though they got the divorce, they got back together, and now he's taking care of her while she's in a very bad state. It's like now he's playing nurse to her for the rest of her life, even after talking that way about her. Okay, the person that got me pregnant when I was 19, after he got me pregnant and planted his seed, some of his friends caught me giving him a peck on the cheek. And so he told them behind my back he wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. And so when I went to look for him and give him the option of fatherhood, these people told me that so I wouldn't have the abortion. So now we have Bill Lieb. So all this stuff is pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. Jody, he loves you. And then you get down to the end and it's like, you're not really getting any communication here. And like, he doesn't say it, but other people let me know, oh, well, he thinks you're ugly and stupid and fat and da-da-da-da. So that doesn't mean he doesn't love me. And now I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody that talks about me like that. But it doesn't mean he doesn't find me attractive, and there's a lot of reasons why he shouldn't find me attractive, but it doesn't mean he doesn't. How can you assume what somebody thinks just because he's in this status position of rock star doesn't mean he only is attracted to models, even though that's what he displays. So, it's just a funny topic because, I'm being dealt all this information and I find part of it's true, part of it's not true for sure, and part of it's just like up in the air, like we have yet to know. It would really take Bill's feedback and honesty to answer half of those questions. And the biggest question is, would he want to marry me or not? It doesn't seem very likely. But it seems like the only thing that makes it somewhat true is that little wiggle room of, hey, what if he's a liar? We all know Bill Lieb's a liar. Okay, and number two, the fact that I'm available or interested on the other end, I'm just like, I have to admit, after everything I've been put through, I mean, if the guy wanted to marry me, it would be hard to say no to him. Even if it's a bad idea, it's just like, I can't get this person out of my head now because, like I've been saying in these visions, I mean, that's why I want you to understand how it was all dealt out, all the whole don't forget who I am. Okay, don't forget who I am. Boo, 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 boo. I can't forget who he is. And to be honest, I really do like him, but I don't want to deal with somebody that is a narcissistic manipulator who is a pathological liar and who has like a harem all over the world or whatever the fuck, and I really don't want to deal with all these problems, but and I really hate to think that whatever's being done to me is mind control or something. Maybe I'm just buying into mind control and Bill Leeb is a fake character made up by the Navy Black Ops or whatever, so it's kind of funny to look at all the possibilities. I just sound like a crazy person. Like I can't say, you know what, I'd marry Bill Leeb. That just makes me sound crazy. Like I can't want that, Like I shouldn't want that. Like, so like if you want to like get your dick snipped off and have an artificial pussy put in, that's fine, okay? Or vice versa. But somebody like me thinking that I should marry Bill Leeb, that's absurd. Why would somebody who grew up listening to industrial music, and thinks, people like JodyVision, that's why I call my playlist the JodyVision. JodyVision was one of my favorite brands coming up. Kraftwerk, Cabaret Voltaire. Bill Leeb says if it wasn't for Cabaret Voltaire, there wouldn't be a Frontline Assembly. Why would a girl like me, like I've been doing martial arts and thinking about getting into music. And, why would someone like me be interested in a person like that? Because it's a status thing. It's like, well, Jody, he's a famous rock star and you're not a pretty model. So we're looking at classism and stuff like that. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. And who are you to say what I believe or what Bill Leeb believes? So people want to tell me what Bill Leeb thinks. And everybody but Bill has told me what he thinks, right? So he doesn't really tell me what he thinks. He just keeps it to himself because he's a pretty smart guy and I appreciate that. But at the same time, because he doesn't communicate, it has left a lot of room for the mystery to grow, so to speak, and has made it even more difficult for me to find resolve and solutions to why I'm having these visions, why I'm being sent to him. And so anyways, maybe in my next video I should talk a little bit more about coming face to face with Bill Leeb, because that's why 24 years later I'm still thinking about this and talking about it. And the reason I'm making these videos is because he is off limits. He's not somebody I can talk to. And so now, if we're dealing with a covert narcissist, for example, some of the things that come along with that is making you feel like communication is futile. So like I can write all the letters I want, I can make all the phone calls I want, and none of that's going to create a sense of communication for me, and I'm not going to get my resolve. In fact, I've made over 100 videos talking about going to visionary state and all the things I've had to deal with. And I even send the links to Bill Leeb to watch them. And even then, I'm still not getting anything for doing it. So that's just it. It's like, I think what Bill Leeb is doing is using a tactic where if you can't just end a conversation, what you do is you exhaust the person who wants to talk to you. So that way they'll just get tired of talking, and that'll end that way. Well, I feel like it's going to take an awfully long time to exhaust me, because I still have a lot of different things I'd like to say about this experience and all the thoughts and revelations that come with it. So anyways, I'll be back, and my goodness, this video has gone on a lot longer than I expected, but hey, so be it. I got a lot to say about it, so that's why these videos are so long. Anyways, you guys have a great day. If you're still listening, I appreciate your thoughts and consideration. If you're interested in what I have to say, I appreciate you for trying to understand me. Again, a lot of people like to listen to reply before they listen to understand. So before you tell me I need to seek mental health or professional health, you have not listened to understand. I already know I sound crazy. So you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you then.